Yeah, hi everybody. This is Cormac and Tulia from the Speak Up and Lead Academy. We're here live today. We've taken onto the road to meet a very good friend and colleague of mine, Olivier Plante from Fleksy. We're in the beautiful Laia bookshop in Barcelona, and we're going to have a conversation around what we've been doing now for the last couple of weeks: AI, communication, all of the wonderful things that are available to us, with the sense of two people who are picking up the courage to learn about it, and someone who has a huge, extensive knowledge about it. So maybe, Olivia, you can start telling people who you are. Welcome to the show.
Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. So I'm French Canadian. I've been here in Barcelona for about 15 years, and I'm leading a team in a company called Fleksy that focuses on the smartphone typing that everyone does every day, right? So as you use your smartphone, there's a virtual keyboard that's on that, and it's packed with stuff that people don't think about. Such as AI processes, natural language processing, and a lot of different behaviors. So we serve around 60 clients across different disciplines, and via that technology, one of the use cases that's interesting is healthcare. Thanks to the way that people type and the analysis made on the keyboard side, our clients can anticipate Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, dementia, schizophrenia, just how people type. So things that people don't really know every day, flabbergasted people, but that's in a nutshell what we're doing. But it expands across different industries, right? Think about all the touch screens that you use every day. There's always a keyboard on that in the car, on your mobile phone, in augmented reality, right? Everywhere that we need to enter text is where Fleksy technology are present.
It's for the digital, it's not for the computer keyboard, okay?
For the software.
Okay, that's something that can it sends to your digital, right?
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
But what he's just said is very interesting as well, because Tulia does make this distinction between generative AI, which everybody seems to think just appeared yesterday, and the AI that really has been part of our lives for years.
Oh yeah. For sure.
What you've just described, that technology has been there for years and years and years, and none of us blindly go into a keyboard and you don't think about everything that's behind it.
Yeah, there's a lot of different things on it. That AI has been really with us for many years now. I think generative AI is just like an evolution of AI processing. It's not a culmination like creating the iPhone. Touchscreen existed before. A software that's running on a touchscreen panel existed before, but it was packaged into a phone, and that's what revolutionized everything. Right? And so, what is mobility after? Now, generative AI is kind of the culmination of AI can do these types of things more than just one single process in a smartphone.
I heard of a concept. I'm the lead person. You're the expert here, which is that like consider like generative AI, as the name generates, can create something. As before, the AI technology we had were more on command, like that. Or like you say, do this, do that, and it was limited to that. But the generative AI can learn and can continue learning from more that you interact. And I think the way we see it, it's closer to us, like as normal people, like all the AI that was it's been available for decades now was not in our radar. As you're saying, like all this. My question is, all this typing that we have been doing, who is collecting this information? Who is behind this?
Yeah,
Where does it go?
Visible versus invisible AI. I think there's been so much invisible AI,
Exactly.
and now it's getting visible. But I mean, to go back to your question, where does that all go? Unless you're using your keyboard.
Yeah, let's say in our case, we don't use the people data. We take data that exists publicly, and then we feed that into our own proprietary algorithms. So we use publicly available data from the data generated by people to be public, like Wikipedia pages, Reddit, social media that can be accessed externally. We can take that data and put it into a new language. So if we want to add a new language on keyboard, we'd be gathering the data from Chinese websites, databases that are publicly available to create a language, right? Using AI, right? Obviously, but we don't use the private data of people. Right? That's not our philosophy.
Okay.
In contrary to other companies, right?
You
Name a
see,
few, right?
in contrary to other companies,
Well, I would say all of them.
yeah.
So
He's done a unique-
famously, obviously, Google is one of the main data gathering. Facebook has been doing it, and now has been doing this for many years. Right? Through these types of data mining companies, they have huge warehouses where plenty of servers and a cloud system just collect the data and try to aggregate this as a base into an AI language model that will just shape it to whatever they want. So if we talk about generative AI, they will take all this data, they will train it, then they transform that data, and then when you look at generative AI, basically it's a system that predicts the next word very quickly or the next thing to say. So if you ask it a question, it knows where it is, it gathers it, and it creates you a reply based on next word predicting the next word.
That will satisfy my curiosity. Yesterday,
But also move you in the direction it wants. No?
Well, that's a
yes,
great
no,
area.
no?
This
Great.
is where it's a gray area, right?
Yeah, okay.
What we call hallucinations, for instance, is that
Okay.
it's a process where sometimes the AI will create an answer that says something. So it's not perfect, but you can imagine that this in 10 years is going to be like full perfection.
Yeah.
So in the future, what we do, you will see, let's say, in the healthcare system, right? When doctors are able to process an amount of data
Yeah.
that is specific, right? There's a certain amount of capacity, brain capacity, right? We're human in the end. In the future, you will have an AI system that recommends the doctor, look at this. I've generated this in about 5 minutes. You will take weeks to create conclusions. But I have analyzed the brain scans, the body scans, the data from the blood samples, etc. And I think that this is what's happening. The doctors would verify this and be the arbitrary, the one that would say yes or no, or that's incorrect. So we will still see professionals with a human added value, but that's just a transition period.
Yeah.
This transition period to something where AI can drive decision making.
I'm more, let's say, positive and romantic about all of this because I know we are not going to live all this revolution. But I think, yeah, that when you're saying about the doctors as a good example, but many other professionals, as I see it as like, I don't call it a tool anymore, I call it an agent. And for what we do here, our exploration of generative AI with ChatGPT and a few other tools that we are starting to explore. For me, what really clicked was that because I'm a curious person, it forces me to be even more curious because the more I ask, the replies is like I'm not just taking it, but I'm really scrutinizing it and asking for more. And this has been a very interesting and adrenaline driven exercise for me because it keeps like giving me more information and things that I never thought I'd like say different perspectives on what I'm considering, but I am really trying my best to expand my questions and being consciously very critical with my responses, and then building this analysis and then say, okay, now this is good to go. And this is one thing that Cormac and I, from the perspective of communication, that is what we want to explore and bring to our clients. Say, listen, this is something that you can practice, that you can make the most of it, and can help you to expand and to improve your skills. Because at the end of the day, communication is a skill, so it needs practice. The more you practice, the better the behavior becomes, because it expands, expands, expands. So for me, I feel like that even more. I started using ChatGPT about 2 years, very recent. But I can see now that I am more attuned to certain things. I'm more attuned to what people say in between the lines. I was already before because of the work we do, but now it's kind of, this, wow, what is that there? And I think this can help us and can position, if we use this wisely, consciously, it can bring us back to our humanity, I think. Why? Because I keep repeating that the internet, social media, great, connected us globally, but we are now living in a monologue world because of this. We are not connected in person. We are not having dialogues. This is why we are doing this here, to have this face to face, to have these conversations. And because these conversations also need practice. If we do not practice conversations, when we have that meeting, when we have that critical presentation or news that you have to give to your team, you are not equipped with the capacity to deal with all the nuances of humans conversations, because humans conversation can go offside just like that, right?
Just before you answer that, I feel that we're at a point where, and this is the important thing in the dialogue, like a very, very small, it's hard to avoid the word elite. There's a very small elite, people like you that have a really great understanding of all of this, and then you have the rest of humanity. Some of whom, I got involved in ChatGPT about 6 months ago because Tulia actively bullied me. She pulled me by the ears and said, you need to learn this. And I'm very, very grateful that you did. But there's a lot of people like me that are like that at the moment. They're like going, no. And, having these almost across the bridge conversations with somebody that fully understands it and then is smart enough to explain it back to people like us, that's very exciting.
Yeah. A couple of thoughts. Obviously, it's the evolution of social media. I'm totally, in agreement with what you're saying. Right? Social media is really like a monolith. There's many, like about maybe 80% or 90% of what you see online on social media would never happen in real life. You wouldn't say that to the face of someone, right? At all. In whatever situation. Now, this is shifting. Right, so in public hearings and government conversation, in public places, you have more and more people expressing themselves in a monologue way. Right? That's one component of like a society shift is taking the monologue system from social media, and the younger generations who've grown up are actually putting this in the real world. Right? So you have more and more people just saying like, "Hey, you're very loud. You're very loud, and you're being aggressive." They would say in your face, like in a monologue way, right? Not in a dialogue. Right?
Not in a dialogue.
So that's a sort of a societal shift. Right? Along with that, people have lost this ability to manage dialogue and the actual opposite point of view. Right? So if you have another point of view, you've seen this in political conversations several times. Right? If I have another political view than yourself, then I'm rejecting it. I'm not saying like, oh, why? Right?
Yeah.
We're actually humans, right? So in the end, we're the same. You just have another thing. I have another thing. That's it. Okay? So my point is basically that when you're moving into a monologue-driven society, you're losing this dialogue capacity. this dialogue capacity is actually what the new generation is becoming of MBAs and leaders of tomorrow's society built in the companies. They will be in the monologue-driven society. Right? So what will actually diverse, what would be a strength, right, for any people would be to have this proper dialogue, this capability. So and then you mix this with generative AI, AI as an agent, right, or helping me in that situation. Obviously, it can give me ideas, but it will never actually give me the capability to have a dialogue and communicate a conversation with a common thread. Right? And this is where people are missing the boat in a sense, right? Because yes, it can draft you an amazing email that's going to be communicating things in an assertive way, respectful way, blah blah blah. But if you have yourself,
Yes.
it's going to be someone else. I think this will, public speaking and leading a team and communicating with a team. AI is going to be a tool, but it's not going to be a replacement.
Yes, I agree with you, because then it's like, okay, for me, it helps me to refine my text, but I always say sometimes it's too formal, it's not me, or too correct, it's not me. I don't speak that English so correct, but I go adapting and saves me time. And because you have to stand by what you say, and then what you said there, it doesn't matter if the agent creates everything for you, but then when you have to face your audience, your team, and you don't have the same arguments, you don't have the same capacity, you're not equipped with the dialogue tools and the skills that you need, it's not going to help you. And this is why I believe the generative AI, in terms of the communication side for ChatGPT, the few things that I've been using, the few tools, it really helps us to get back to our humanity in the sense that what defines us as human beings is the communication, right? That we communicate with others at several different levels. It's not only what we say. It's really like I'm talking to Olivier and I'm observing his eyes, I'm observing his body reaction, even if it is unconscious. But the more we work with communication, our job is also to observe and start reading what is behind the words that what you say. And we are more attuned to that because it's part of what we do. So this is what most people are not attuned to that. And what I say about the monologue in social media, I find that nowadays when I go to have a conversation with my friend, sometimes it's difficult because nobody's listening, and it's this statement, the statement, the statement, the statement. So nobody's really like, there's no moment I say, okay, let's listen to Cormac and build upon what he's saying. Not that I'm agree or I can disagree, but let's build the conversation from that. No, it's Cormac's point and it's my point. And I believe, from what I have been, from my experience with the tool so far, with the agent, as I like to say, is that it forces, if you want to take the most of it, it forces you to build dialogue.
If you're smart, how you use it.
Yes.
And you're not just taking what it's presented. Because Julie and I also heard two new terms. One of them is human renaissance. I heard that online. And then the other one is something you're involved in, which is human confirmed content. Have I got that correct?
Yes.
Is that the correct terminology, or
Credentials? Yeah, it's provenance, right? So what is interesting is currently now, and you will see AI systems. Just a point on what you said, right, about humanity. Video creation by AI, as well as voice mimicry capabilities. In 10 years, it will be very difficult for you to see a difference between your digital twin and yourself online. And also, the whole digital world is going to be different. I'll be able to have an agent that actually is myself in a digital format, and in 10 years, we'll be able to publicly speak to anyone in a conference, in a Zoom call, on my behalf. That's kind of disruptive. However, it will never actually replace the human connection, right? So if I go into public speaking situation or in front of my team or in a retreat or in a conference, it's not going to happen, right?
Yeah.
So you will start to see this difference. Now, when I connect this content credential connected to this, in the future in the digital world, it's very, very difficult to see if an image has been created by an AI or it's a real picture coming from my camera. And so, as I was saying at the beginning of the healthcare work that we're doing around understanding how people type, we can actually understand also what is your fingerprint, like how you type is actually unique to you. So in that way, we're on the text side of things, but we're able to distinguish if this piece of text has been created by a human or a machine.
Even that is incredible.
So the way that you're typing is human, right? And it's very difficult for a robot or a software to mimic that capability because we calculate the fine little details in how you type, the pressure sensitivity, the timing, the distance that you usually type in. You type next to the T normally, or at that point, how much pressure are you putting there, the speed, the velocity of typing, all these data points, they make you human. For a machine to mimic that, it's very tough. So we're entering this phase of our company where we are able to, as other companies partner for image creation, video creation, sound creation, they're able to sign this is human or robot for generative AI. And that's a problem. This content has come from that company or that person. We can link things in a decentralized world, right? So it's a blockchain technology, and it's a organization, it's a consortium led by Adobe that we're part of called the Content Authenticity Initiative. And we are just one of the members of 3,000 members that focus on text. So very little amount of companies are able to focus on text. Since we have been doing keyboard technologies for over a decade, now we're focusing on being sort of the leader in the text input for mobile smartphones. So you can imagine tomorrow social networks. There's a lot of text bits that go in social networks that are fake. They're all generated by robots. Now, very hard for a human to say this is true or not. You don't know, and it's coming from a robot or it's coming from a human. A robot creates text at scale, right? So there's this one data point. But it can also create a piece of text that will go viral really fast, right? Because it calculates when and how. If we're able to tag the text, this is human, then you'll have the end result, which is social networks, where you as a reader can understand if this is coming from a human or a machine.
Okay.
That drives your attention to keep a bit of humanity in the conversation on social network in particular.
What would you say is called provenance? Sure, but what would you say to young people? Because you know that I work with young people, so does Julia sometimes. And yesterday I actually saw something in, I think it was the Guardian, this guy saying, you know, I am now officially part of the last generation that remembers life before the internet. I remember life without that. What would you say to a young person that said, but you know, in the future or in the very near future, what do I really care whether it was human produced content or not? If the content works and it's good and it does what I need it to do, why would I have to be concerned about whether there's a human provenance to it or not? That's a big question, I think. I think people like us, it's obvious. We remember life before that. But, you know, somebody that's currently 14, 15, 16, you know, I think a lot of them are going to go, well, why do I care?
I mean, my view of this is that AI systems, they are in some ways trying to sanitize the way things are produced. So to answer your question, like in the future they will live in will be a very sterile and sanitized common type of content, no colors, always the same tone.
And you had said that right the other day. I thought
That's
the same prompts. Where did you get that quote? If we all put in the same prompts,
You
we'll all
vote.
end up getting the similar content back.
very similar.
That we go to like there was someone who mentioned if we go this way, we might be in the situation where the speakers from a conference get the same prompt because you have a topic of the conference, etc. And then when you go there, everybody has the
next
same
expert.
say that have the same speech.
Yeah.
No, someone it will come back.
But
to
it
me.
can be. That's the case.
Mm.
That's the case because, but I think the technology will sort of adapt to that, right? We'll be able to. I think the social networks that we know now will drastically change, right? So the digital world we're going to live in will be one where there's going to be perhaps my agent, my duplication,
Yeah.
Doppelganger.
doing social media every day.
Yeah,
I
because
will
they
be
are.
sitting on my couch and just do nothing. But I think that will inherently be tagged as um, same as others, right? But I don't think that this will be. I think it will not. How you say that? Differentiate yourself.
Uh-huh.
Be in the same boat.
Yeah, but you see, we're not there. We don't aspire to something that high level. But do from our perspective right now, it really can be a time saver in a way of leverage our content to offer to serve our community in terms like knowing that you can have your avatar, your virtual avatar, that can you create your texts, and then you have a way of creating your video, your online trainings with someone that is Cormac, but it's not Cormac, but it was there with the text and replicating and giving the content. But I think then it comes to we still are ethical and we still want to give something that has us in it. But we understand that in the future there might be the most of the things, and there's still happening right now. We see many things and many people that just get what comes and just put it on without having uh, their own seal. Like this is me with the support of all this technology, but I am signing off this, and now I can post this.
Yeah.
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 But then, the question for me also is that right now, with all of the social media, there always was the possibility to opt out. I'm not a social media person. I'm not interested.
Yes.
I think as AI and generative AI becomes more and more omnipresent in work,
Yeah.
and this is, part of what's the impulse for Tuli and I to start these conversations, you will get to a point where either you partially adapt to what's happening or you're going to be left behind.
Oh yeah, you need to.
Then that's work, that's life,
right?
that's earning your
Yes.
salary. So you're not going to have, I feel, the same option of saying, I'm not a Facebooker, I don't like Instagram, it's
Yeah.
not for me. You're going to have to, at some level,
Yeah.
get involved
think-
with it.
I think there's a good
and
example
understand
to
it.
show how much this is the way to go. Right? So you've probably heard that one of the main disruptor, the main market that generative AI disrupted is translation. Right? Live translation itself, right? So translators
Yeah.
imploded, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
That was a
So-
huge industry.
It's a huge industry, and it is still now. There's a lot of people that are smart enough, right, to jump on the train. What do? They use generative AI. They use their skills. They add the value onto it. They have the AI that is next to them. They can offer 20 times more translation per hour.
Yeah.
Than before.
Yeah.
So that's this type of shift where you have the winners and the losers, right? This is a good example. It's the first one that I can vouch for it. It is confirmed, that translation with AI will be the winners.
Mhm.
And translators that don't want to touch AI because I don't know what, etc., will
It's been left behind.
be obsolete.
Because they're not going to produce work fast enough.
Yeah.
At that point, it's not even about
It's
the
gonna be a
quality of
price.
the work. It's the price point.
It's
You're
gonna
not
be a price.
producing fast enough. Your translation, you could put them together. They're, you know, equally good potentially, but it's taken you a week to give me what your
it.
colleague has just given me in the morning. And so clearly I'm going to go back to your colleague with more work,
Yeah.
and I'm going to tell you thanks, but you're too
Exactly.
expensive. You're too slow.
Yeah.
So think about, like, we're in a bookstore. In about 10 years, all the books will be translated by AI, and translators checking them in the same fashion as the example of the doctor, right? AI
Yeah.
will drive,
Yeah.
and then the doctor will vet,
Uh-huh.
right? And so human beings will be vetting.
But then,
That's a great way of actually thinking
Yeah.
about it. AI drives humans vet.
but then
I like
it's
that.
the ones, the human beings vetting are the ones that really work on their skills to be in that position.
Yeah.
Because that is what you're while all of this is happening, this is what we're doing. This is to understand, and how can we keep upskilling, that we are in this position that we can understand and we can be critical and analytical and say, okay, yes or no for this. This is why all these jobs that are people just go and do whatever without even putting their heart on it. There's gonna be they become obsolete, and they're already talking. Yesterday, they were saying the universal minimum wage, because these people, like I was saying, these people, like, I'm taking
Anybody.
ourselves out of it, but like people, and because of all the technology being able to do all of this, definitely it will change the whole working system. Change, and many people will not be able to have these skills that are needed in those moments, but these people need to survive. So then,
I heard another great metaphor the other day where somebody said that AI is a dragon. The only way you can survive a dragon is ride its back. And if you're in front of it, under it, anywhere near it, that's it, you're toast. But if you want to survive that dragon, you have to be on top of it, controlling it. It can drive, but you're vetting. That's a great thing for us to take away.
so Olivier, your last thoughts before we close it. We have a lot to talk. We will continue this
We
conversation.
can get
This
it
is
back
like, let's
in
say,
another one. This is
episode 1 with
this man is
Olivier.
worth the money.
Estaremos ya en la mesa en breve, ¿vale?
Sí.
Pueden continuar en la parte de la entrada, si quieren, ¿vale?
Okay, perfect.
Gracias.
Final thoughts. I don't know.
See, for people like us professionals that are still reluctant to become curious about this technology, and what would be your suggestion?
So I recommend I mean, in my view, it's like you have to play with those, and like you have to spend about maybe 25 of your time, 25% of your time, juggling and playing around with them, and figuring out how it will add value, right? How can it speed up your time, therefore your costs, right? And your output and the quality of the output, right? So, but obviously, when you talk about in-person conversation and dialogue, I think you still need to have experts and help from outside, or be in a situation where you can talk about a lot of different things with others, right? That would be my recommendation. And don't be stuck to your positions, just be open.
Be adaptable.
Yes.
So
Have a friend who pushes you into the deep water.
yeah,
Like
so be
Julia did
curious.
with
And
me.
for
Yes.
remain curious.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you.
And we will continue this conversation. We will continue this conversation until the next time, because we have a lot to learn from you and the people listening there.
Bye, everybody.